I like this tapestry, but I feel like I'm being watched. What's up, guys? It's B Renee. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you're like me, well, if you're anybody, probably, you have ambitions in life. And sometimes those ambitions are masochistic and unattainable, and they're called writerly ambitions. Just full transparency, it's super fucking hard to write a book. But I have a feeling if you're doing it, it's not because you want to, it's because you have to. So if you just can't help yourself, you could probably make it a little bit easier on yourself. So here are 10 things that you are more than likely doing as a writer that you should stop. The first one is you are jumping at the very first offer of publication, representation, etc., etc. Self-explanatory, we get excited, we want to take the opportunity, we don't know when another opportunity is going to come along. But here's what you should do instead. You should do your research, be knowledgeable about this business, be choosy with your book baby, know what kind of agents like your type of work, know what kind of publishing houses tend to go for your genre and category. Be picky, be selective, but be knowledgeable. And just to totally contradict myself, my next point is that you're probably being way too choosy with your book baby. I know, I just said be choosy, but you're not Stephen King. You don't get to hold out for 7-figure book deals. People are not shitting their pants in Barnes & Noble, waiting in line for 12 hours for midnight on your release day. Probably, if you're watching my channel. If they are doing that for you, hit me up. What's the secret? Who's your agent? Do not expect a huge advance. Do not expect 6-figure book and movie deals right off the bat. It's just not gonna happen. You're gonna be very disappointed. Here's what you should do instead. Be realistic, manage your expectations, and understand the ballpark figures for someone of your notoriety, experience, etc. You are allowed to be choosy. You are allowed to speak up and say what you want. It is your book. It is your intellectual property. You don't have to accept any deals. You don't have to accept any representation unless you sign a contract. So remember that if you're not happy with a deal and the ink is not dry yet, you can back out of it. You can change your mind. It sucks. It's gonna burn some bridges, but that's why you should be choosy in the first place. That's why you should understand your level in the first place and not get cocky. The next thing you're doing, or actually in this case not doing, is reading your book out loud. If you wrote a book, it probably has dialogue. If a book has dialogue, it means 2 people are talking. And when 2 people are talking, it needs to sound like 2 people are talking. Maybe you feel awkward about your dialogue. Maybe you've never read it out loud because you feel weird about it. There's a good chance if that's the case, then it does not sound realistic. Instead, read that shit out loud. Have a full conversation with yourself. Read your entire book in different voices. Do your narration in dramatic voiceover voice. Do the mannerisms and meticulations of your characters to see if somebody would actually move their hand that way when they said that word. You need to put it in a human body for it to realistically sound on paper like a human body is doing it. You have to. It's necessary. Even if you just read it quietly to yourself. I understand, like, if you're a younger author, maybe you live at home, you're not trying to have a whole one-man show in your room reading your rough draft, because that's embarrassing. Your brother's probably listening and recording you for, what do you guys use, TikTok now? Like, that's embarrassing, okay? I get that. But it's got to be done at some point or the other, or it's going to sound stilted and awkward and not real. We've been over this many a time. By the time I finished even writing the rough draft of Something Wicked, which is the final book in my trilogy, Civil Blood had been out for a month and a half. And the second book, Accidental Evils, was on its 3rd or 4th draft, which means I now have concrete rules, relationships, symbols, themes in print already. And instead of being able to wrap everything up in a neat little bow with Something Wicked, I have to retro correct things. I have to now follow the rules of Civil Blood instead of building Civil Blood and Accidental Evils to kind of lead to Something Wicked. I've painted myself into many a corner now because I didn't plan ahead of time. So instead, you should plot your series ahead of time. You should know the arc your characters are going to take from book 1 to the last book. You should know the beats, the major events of every single book and how they all tie together to the end, because the most important part is the finale of the series, and you don't want to have to write it around the other books. You want to be able to tie everything up with that last book, instead of using that last book to tie everything up. I know that I just said the same thing, but you get what I'm saying, like they're different. The next thing you're doing is thinking you're entitled to constant inspiration and not writing when you feel uninspired. I'm just gonna tell you right now, if writers only wrote when they were inspired, there'd be approximately 7 books in the history of the world. Inspiration is great. It's great when it comes. It's such a nice, friendly, familiar feeling to have inspiration, but consistency and routine are what make authors. It's what makes a good book. You have to put your happy ass in the chair and write every day, even when you don't feel like it. Point blank, period. I know that sounds awful. The next thing you're doing wrong and that you need to stop is you think your first draft is a book. My sweet, sweet baby. It's not. You should not show it to anyone. You should not query it. You should not send it to editors or beta readers. You should not upload it to Kindle Direct. It's not done. Here's what you should do instead. You should edit it, revise it, rewrite it, take some time off, come back, do more edits, more revisions, more rewrites, take some time off, do some more edits, some more revisions, some more rewrites, then hand it to beta readers, then take it to an editor, and then maybe put it out. Trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. Trust me. The next thing you're probably doing, and again, I know you are because I'm doing it too, is you're sharing way too much about your project on social media at a very early stage. I did this in March and April. I was really excited about Blood from a Stone, and I started telling y'all all about it. I told you character names, I told you all kinds of stuff about them, and as it's progressed, only pretty much like the setting and themes have stayed the same, and that's about it. So now when I go back and make edits, I have it in my head that I already told you guys, oh, this is this way, and so I don't want to change it. That is like the worst thing I can possibly think of in terms of blocking yourself and having like writer's block, imposter syndrome, self-doubt, is because you already told your followers that it was like this. Why'd you do that? Why? What you can do instead is have a critique partner or an alpha reader to bounce every single horrible, awful idea that you have off of, so you're not just word vomiting it into the atmosphere where thousands of followers and subscribers see it and take it as law. So then when they read the book, when it comes out, they are confused. Or you keep something because you already said it was like that, which, wow. Yeah, big mistake. The next thing you're doing that you gotta stop doing is treating your readers like they're stupid. Writers' worst enemy is our tendency to over-explain things. We spend so much time on research and development and character building and world building, and I'll be damned if I spent 3 hours researching how a 1957 Porsche Speedster's engine works and not tell you about it. But here's the thing. Writers are also readers, so you should know that as soon as you start getting way too in detail about things we don't give a fuck about and that don't really affect the plot, we're gonna tune out. And that's usually about the point when I start flipping through pages or putting a book down altogether. So what should you do instead? You should leave them little breadcrumbs to follow. You should give them interesting little plot points, interesting little foreshadowing details. Don't ever, ever, ever give too much away. That is the cardinal sin of writing. You want to leave a reader speculating and asking questions even after it's over. If you want a book to linger in a reader's head after the fact, and you do, you definitely want them to be thinking about your book once it's done. The best way to do that is to make them answer the question themselves. Make them fill in the blanks, because the more they have to think about it, the more they're gonna be thinking about it. Hello. The second to last thing that you are doing that you have to stop doing, or actually the thing you're not doing that you should start doing, is you're not working on your author platform because you haven't published anything yet. The social media debate is the greatest writerly debate since like the Oxford comma, which like use it, it shouldn't be a debate. But if you think that you don't need a platform already, even if you're just plotting, you wrong. Instead, you should be establishing a presence on your preferred social media platform or across multiple platforms. You should be finding your writing community. You should be finding readers who like what you're working on, other writers who write in the genre that you do, people you can get advice from, people that can turn into your support system. You gotta start working on that right away. Why do you wanna do this? Because it takes time to build a following, and by the time your book is out, you want a built-in audience. You want people to already have known about it for months ahead of time. It's not how you think it is when you put out a book. It's not like it explodes onto the scene and it's everywhere and everyone knows about it. It's not like that. It takes a lot of pre-promotion and continued promotion after the fact, but you want to really have that core audience built in before it even comes out, before you're even done with it, because that's going to guarantee you a lot more success than if you just put it out and like didn't tell anybody about it for like the 6 months beforehand. And the number one thing that you are probably doing that you should stop doing is sabotaging yourself with imposter syndrome and self-doubt. Now, I've talked about imposter syndrome ad nauseum. If you missed my video on that last month, I'll link it in the cards or in the description for you. But the bottom line is we all deal with imposter syndrome, and you are halting yourself or doubting your work because you feel unworthy or insecure. And unfortunately, all I can say is we all do. It happens to all of us. But if you don't really believe in yourself and your work, you can't really expect anybody else to. So instead, my best advice is really to fake it till you make it. Trust the process, talk about it with, again, this is why a writer community and a platform is so important ahead of time while you're going through the process. People love to see the process. We love to talk about the process. We love to commiserate on the process. The book is like the goal, but they always say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So like, share your journey. You're gonna find that you're definitely not alone with the imposter syndrome and self-doubt thing. It's crippling to a lot of us. Again, go watch my video last month about imposter syndrome. I was going through it when I filmed that. That is gonna do it for this video, guys. Please let me know if there's anything that I miss. Is there anything that you think you're doing or other people are doing that is really hurting them, sabotaging them, big mistakes that newbie writers make, or even, you know, seasoned people make some of these mistakes? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, you know, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. I make videos every single Wednesday, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye.